After President Trump's incredible press conference on Thursday, a war broke out between people on the left and in the media and people on the right. People on the left and in the media insisted Trump had savaged the media unjustifiably and lied repeatedly and refused to answer easy questions and twisted innocent questions into attacks on the questioners. Jake Tapper of CNN said it was unhinged, it was wild, it was an airing of grievances, it was Festivus. Those on the right chortled gleefully as Trump savaged the press. We were glad to watch Trump take the air out of the media's overhyped Flynn hot air balloon. We were excited to watch Trump redirect from the media's controversy of the day approach back toward his policy victories. Most of all, we were ecstatic to watch Trump baffle the media with his concoction of vicious, deserved attacks on the left. Rush Limbaugh said, "You get caught up in the moment, but this was one of the most effective press conferences I've ever seen." Naturally, those on the left accused those on the right of being in a bubble. How could they watch that nutty press conference and come away happy? And those on the right responded, "This is why Trump won." Here's the truth. Both sides are now in a bubble. Right now, Trump enjoys an 84% approval rating from Republicans and those who lean Republican, according to Pew Research. He gets just 8% approval from Democrats and those who lean that way. By contrast, at this point in their presidencies, Ronald Reagan had a 39% approval rating among Democrats. George H.W. had a 46% approval rating among Democrats. Obama had a 37% approval rating from Republicans. This is the most polarized electorate in modern American history. Quinnipiac actually makes the polarization even more stark. According to their polling, Trump has a 91% favorable rating among Republicans, but a 3% favorable rating among Democrats, and we are less than a month in. That's because everybody is now seeing the news through the prism of revenge. That's not because of Trump. This has been brewing for years. Those on the right have railed correctly for decades at the overwhelming leftist bias in the media. When Trump shouts fake news, we resonate. We've been saying the same thing forever. Normally, this would probably be healthy. The media have it coming. Each time members of the media complain about Trump's attacks on the press, Republicans and conservatives laugh hysterically. We've been the targets of media bias as long as we can remember. There's something innately satisfying about watching Trump become the avatar of our rage. Meanwhile, those on the left stand agape as the right guffaws at Trump's fibs. Don't they understand Trump isn't answering important questions? Don't they get that Trump clearly knows little about policy and half of what he does know isn't so? We're now at an impasse. The right conflates Trump's fibs with his media slams, and then we excuse both. And the left conflates Trump's media slams with his fibs and dismisses all concerns about the media. Everybody is so excited to see somebody on the other side of the political aisle get slapped. Nobody seems to care much about what's true and what's false anymore. It's revenge politics at its finest. And that desire for revenge is reinforced by social media, which encourages you to interact with people who think like you. Social media algorithms dictate if you enjoy a right-wing outlet, you'll probably like other right-wing outlets. The same holds true on the left. Thus, everybody on the left believes Donald Trump has troubling ties with Russia. Everybody on the right believes Donald Trump is a pure victim of the deep state in the press. Nobody on either side acknowledges there may be truth to the claims of the other because nobody's even reading what the other side has to say. This is actually a problem. It's a problem for two specific reasons. First, the social fabric requires we be able to discuss issues of the day with one another rationally, and that requires sharing a common set of facts, rather than everybody bringing their own facts to the party. We can argue over the conclusions to be drawn from that set of facts. We may not agree, or we may agree. But if we can't agree on facts, then we end up just standing in our respective corners screaming at each other. Second, if we never know whom to believe, or worse yet, if we believe that those in power, when they agree with us politically, are right, no matter whether what they say is right or wrong, or true or false, we run the risk of actual tyranny. Truth was supposed to be the check on government. Sunlight was supposed to be the best disinfectant. But if truth goes out the window, then government becomes merely a machine for retaliation. Elections just become a vehicle for taking out your ire on your enemies. This isn't a new problem. George Washington experienced the problem of partisanship early on in the history of the Republic. He talked about its risks in his farewell address. It's pretty prescient stuff. Here's what he said, quote, "Let me now take a more comprehensive view and warn you in the most solemn manner against the baneful effects of the spirit of party generally. The alternate dominion of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries has perpetrated the most horrid enormities, is itself a frightful despotism. But this leads at length to a more formal and permanent despotism. The disorders and miseries which result gradually incline the minds of men to seek security and repose in the absolute power of an individual, and sooner or later, the chief of some prevailing faction, more able or more fortunate than his competitors, turns this disposition to the purposes of his own elevation on the ruins of public liberty. It serves always to distract the public councils, enfeeble the public administration. It agitates the community with ill-founded jealousies and false alarms, kindles the animosity of one part against another, foments occasional riot and insurrection. It opens the door to foreign influence and corruption, which finds a facilitated access to the government itself through the channels of party passions. Thus, the policy and the will of one country are subjected to the policy and will of another." Washington recommended we all take a step back and fight against the spirit of party. He said, quote, in governments purely elective, it is a spirit not to be encouraged, a fire not to be quenched. A fire, it demands a uniform vigilance to prevent its bursting into flame, lest instead of warming, it should consume. So, here's a mild proposal. Everybody should call balls and strikes. The media should be hit when they propagate fake news, and their bias should be exposed routinely. The left and media should acknowledge the problem of media bias isn't illusory. Trump should be hit when he lies too. The right should acknowledge that truth isn't secondary to political power. This may not please those whose first priority is the victory of their party, on either side, but it should make for a better country, a place where facts and truth still actually matter. One final note. For people on both sides who think that truth will never defeat lies, if you unilaterally disarm by calling balls and strikes, you're helping the enemy. If we truly believe truth no longer holds sway, we might as well end this great experiment of Republican government. The argument against truth is an argument against consent, against representation, against democracy itself. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. All right, lot to get to. President Trump has been very, very busy since we last spoke. We spoke last on Thursday morning before that massive press conference, so we still have to go through that because that's still making waves. We'll talk a little bit about some of the policy proposals that are being tried out. But first, we have to say thank you to our advertisers over at Texture.com. Okay, so if you're somebody who loves reading, if you're addicted to information the way I am, if you love magazines the way that I do, the best way for you to get access to those magazines is with Texture.com. So the way that Texture works is for one price, you get access to 200 plus magazines full of in-depth and interviews and stories, all in the Texture app right on your tablet or phone. It's searchable, so you can mark what you like. You can check out back issues, view bonus video content. They curate articles and magazines just for you, or whoever you're going to give Texture to as a gift this year. Terrific service. I've been using it myself, and that's why we're going to have a guest on in the near future who I read about in Reader's Digest, my wife's favorite magazine, from Texture.com. Texture they're fantastic. Right now, they offer my listeners a 14-day free trial, so you can try it out. You go to Texture.com/Ben. That's 14 days to try it for free. It's $9.99 a month after that. You get over 200 magazines, and we're talking major magazines. They're not just filling up the list with a bunch of magazines that you've never heard of. It's not like the local dental magazine. We're talking about, People Magazine and Sports Illustrated and Forbes and Vanity Fair and Rolling Stone and Cosmopolitan, all of the major magazines. And whether or not you like the magazines, it's important that you be up on it. I mean, this is what I was just discussing a minute ago. Very important that you be up on all sides of the news so that you can know what the other side is saying and you can know the facts they're bringing to the table. That's what Texture is for. Texture.com. You go there right now. You use promo code Ben so that they know that we sent you. You get access to those 200 magazines plus all the back issues. It really is a phenomenal app. And again, you can use it on your phone or on your tablet as well. Okay, so lots happened over the weekend, and I want to start with Donald Trump's press conference. So there was a lot here that was good, and there was a lot here that was bad. So it was interesting. I gave a grade to Donald Trump at the end of last week. I do this every week now, and I gave him a grade of C- last week because it started off with the Flynn debacle, and then he had the Netanyahu meeting, which was great, and then he had this press conference, which was all over the place. What I said in that piece about how to grade Trump is that one of the problems with grading Trump is you end up with one grade. Trump is actually a series of grades, right? Trump is A or he's F. There's not a lot of in between. He's got really high highs and he's got really low lows. And you saw it all in that press conference on Thursday. So the right was picking out the highs, and they were very excited about those highs, and the left was picking out the lows, and they were very happy about those lows. There really wasn't much in between. And the question is, which side are Americans going to take, or is it all just going to become part of the background noise, which is what I actually think. I think a lot of this is going to become part of the background noise. There's a broader message I have here for the right that I want to discuss in just a second, but we'll start off with a little bit of good Trump, bad Trump, because it was epic good Trump, bad Trump. I mean, it was ultimate good Trump, bad Trump.
Good Trump, bad Trump, which one will we get today?
So he started off, did President Trump, with some good Trump, and that was slapping the media, because the truth is the media are wildly biased. Now, I would always prefer that if you're going to attack the media, you do it on the basis of them lying, not on the basis of them doing things you don't like. You shouldn't attack people just because they're doing something you don't like. You should do it because they're lying, not telling the truth, saying something that's false. I'm perfectly fine with slapping the media. I do it on a regular basis. Watch me anytime I go on any network. The chances that I'm slapping the media are about 117%. But it's always based on what did the media do today, not just based on, well, those darn media people, they're just terrible. And Donald Trump, finished off this press conference, by the way, with a tweet in which he basically called the media the enemy. Here's the tweet from Donald Trump. It said, "The fake news media, failing New York Times, NBC News, ABC, CBS, CNN, is not my enemy. It is the enemy of the American people. That's not good Trump. The part that's good Trump is the part where he actually slaps the media for doing what they're doing. The reason this isn't good Trump is because the president of the United States should just, as a matter of course, not be calling broad swaths of the American public the enemy of the American people. It's dangerous language. It suggests that unless he's going to prosecute them, like Barack Obama actually treated the media who are adversarial to him as members of the enemy. He actually prosecuted them. Trump hasn't suggested he's doing that yet, but once you start saying things like the press is the enemy of the American people, you're suggesting that every time the press attacks Donald Trump, they're attacking the American people, and that isn't true. Again, conflation of something false with something I don't like is a dangerous business. And that's particularly dangerous when you conflate your own interests with those of the American people. When as president you say, an attack on me is an attack on all Americans, that's ugly stuff, okay? That's not the way that it works. Woodrow Wilson used to think this way. He used to think that the president was sort of the great embodiment of the American people. That's not what the president is. The president is a constitutionally elected officer with specific duties. If you attack the president, that doesn't mean you're attacking the American people. Sometimes, if that were true, then we were all guilty of treason going after Barack Obama. Okay, Barack Obama was wrong a lot. I don't like this business where the president is the representative of all the American people. You attack him, you're attacking Americans. It's a bunch of crap. If you want to say that they're the enemy of the American people because they're lying, then you have to actually point out the lies. So here was the good Trump. Okay, that was a little bit of the bad Trump. Here's the good Trump. Trump starts off by attacking the media, and here's what he has to say.
Unfortunately, much of the media in Washington, D.C., along with New York, Los Angeles in particular, speaks not for the people, but for the special interests and for those profiting off a very, very obviously broken system. The press has become so dishonest that if we don't talk about it, we are doing a tremendous disservice to the American people. Tremendous disservice. We have to talk about it to find out what's going on, because the press honestly is out of control. The level of dishonesty is out of control.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think that the press have been jumping on every bad headline. I proposed a rule last week that every headline, you now have to wait 24 hours to find out whether it's true or not, because there's such a race to be first, and there's also such a race to slap Trump, to get Trump, that a lot of what's coming out of the press is false. So this is good Trump, and it's fair for him to say all of this. It's also fair for him to say that he inherited a not wonderful situation. Now, here's what I like about this. It's honest. Here's what I don't like about it. It's the sort of stuff that Obama used to say about Bush all the time. I'll be okay with it for a month. If in 3 years Donald Trump is still saying what a terrible situation he inherited, that's not going to wash. At a certain point, you have to start being president. Here's Trump talking about the mess he inherited.
To be honest, I inherited a mess. It's a mess. At home and abroad, a mess.
Okay, so that's true. But again, he's going to have to stop doing that at a certain point. Okay, then we get to some of the bad Trump, unfortunately. And the bad Trump is just confusion. Okay, so the bad Trump is confusion and misinformation. And again, this is where I think that it's important that we note something about what people on both sides are doing, and it's not good. And that is, most politics, and I've said this for literally years. You can look back at my speeches. I've been saying this for probably 10 years. Most politics is driven by the negative. Most politics is driven by, here's what I don't like, right? It's driven by, as I would say on this show, stuff I hate, right? Most politics is driven by, here's something I don't like. So when Trump slaps the media, people on the right cheer, yeah, that's great. And it is. It's good. But at a certain point, you're going to have to determine whether you stand for more than just stuff that you stand against. And the danger of falling into the trap of, I'm only going to support politicians because the politicians are breaking things I don't like, is that they may be breaking things you do like also. Right? It's possible they're breaking things you do like also. Like, one of the things that I like is truth. I'm just a big fan. I like facts. I like truth. I'm not a big fan of fibs. And so when Donald Trump says stuff like this about the size of his electoral margin, this is 11D, people on the right sort of overlooked this. They said it was no big deal. I don't think it's a huge deal, but I think it is indicative of the fact that the right buys into Trump because he slaps the media, and they ignore some of the stuff that he says that isn't true. And I don't see why that should have to be the case. Why can't you enjoy him slapping the media when he's telling the truth? It doesn't seem to me like these two ideas should be in conflict. Here's what he had to say.
Very simply, you said today that you had the biggest electoral margin since Ronald Reagan, 304, 306 electoral votes. In fact, President Obama got 365.
Well, I'm talking about Republican. Yeah.
Obama 300.
Yeah.
George W. Bush 426 when he won as president. So why should Americans?
Well, no, I was given that information. I don't know. I was just given. We had a very, very big margin.
Okay, I was just given that information. That doesn't wash. You're the president of the United States. For God's sake, you have the greatest information gathering superpower in the history of man on your side, and you can't come up with like a simple answer for this, that doesn't wash. People on the right sort of shrugged it off and laughed. Okay, fine. It's not a big deal. I get it. I don't think it's a big deal either. But when there's a constant stream of this sort of stuff, it's a problem. And Donald Trump makes this happen through a constant stream. Here's, in a second, I'm going to play the clip that I thought was sort of got to the essence of this. First, we have to say thank you to our advertisers over at Distilled. So, if you are interested in jeans, really nice jeans, but for a price that you can afford, not $200 jeans, then you need to go over to my friends at dstld.com, dstld.com. And it's, they like to say, it's where minimalist design meets maximum comfort. Basically, they're really comfortable jeans. They really stand the test of time. They are not complicated. They're not rhinestone studded. They're not trendy. They're just great jeans that fit you really, really well. And they send them to you, and they're well under $100. If you get it using the promo code, you get $10 off your first pair at dstld.com/Ben right now. You get 10% off your first pair. It's been featured in all the major magazines. I'm wearing a pair right now, dstld.com/Ben. Really some of the best jeans that I've ever owned. I wear jeans like every day, so it's actually important to me what jeans I wear. And the reason that they're able to save so much is because they're direct to consumer, and also because they're very efficient in their manufacturing process. So you should go to dstld.com right now. They ship it to you for free, and then if you don't like the fit, then they will take it back, right? They take it back from you for free as well until you find the perfect pair, so there's no risk involved. dstld.com/Ben. Make sure you use /Ben so that they know that we sent you. Okay, so what I'm saying about Trump here, and I think this is true not just of Trump, I think this is true for all Republicans everywhere. The conservative movement, in many cases, has become so about opposing the left, which is great. I'm opposed to the left. There's no one who fights harder against the left than I do. It's become so much about opposing the left that sometimes we're willing to ignore sins on our own side in order to do that. And I think that that's a mistake, because one of the things that makes you a right-winger as opposed to a left-winger is the idea that truth is not relative. Truth is not malleable. Truth is not something that you can just shift aside for your own political benefit or for the benefit of the collective. And when you start shifting it aside for the benefit of the collective, you're no longer on the right anymore. So when Donald Trump says things like this, here's Donald Trump talking about the leaks. This is nonsensical stuff, and the right should not be defending it.
The leaks are real. You know what they said. You saw it. And the leaks are absolutely real. The news is fake because so much of the news is fake. So,
well, okay, so the question was, you said the news is fake, but the leaks are real. And then he says, that's right. Okay, if they're just repeating the leaks and you say the leaks are real, the news can't be fake, obviously. Now, I think what he's saying here, what he's trying to say is that the narrative they draw from the news is fake. That's fine. But he should be more specific in how he goes about this, because otherwise he's just undermining the notion of truth altogether. And he says this kind of stuff throughout the press conference, right? There was one point where he was talking about the travel ban, and here's what he said about the travel ban. No one in their right mind believes this.
Dude, let me tell you about the travel ban.
Were there any mistakes in that?
Wait. I know who you are. Just wait. Let me tell you about the travel ban. We had a very smooth rollout of the travel ban. Okay, so there are two. So this is a perfect embodiment of what the right likes about Trump, and also what the right should not like about Trump. So he says, wait, just a minute, I know who you are. Shut up, basically. And the right goes, yeah, that's awesome. The media's been pissing all over Republican presidents for years. I mean, George W. Bush just hid in his cubbyhole, and Republicans for years have been so afraid of the media. And here's a guy who isn't afraid of the media, and that's great. It would be spectacular, okay? I would be able to sit here in all happiness, just being super happy about that, except for the fact that he's saying things that aren't true, okay? So two things can be true at once. It's great the media is getting slapped. The media should be slapped over truth. They should not be slapped over lies. Okay, they shouldn't be slapped over things that are being said that are just false. And this is the point I'm making about bubbles. It's really important. Think of news like geometry. If you're trying to determine the truth, there's a right-wing line and there's a left-wing line, and they are not parallel. Okay, they do cross at a certain point. The point at which they cross is the point of fact. Okay, this is why it's important for you to actually look at outlets from both sides, because if one side says a fact and the other side says a fact, that's the point where they're going to meet. They're going to totally diverge when it comes to the narratives they draw from the fact, but the point at which they meet is the factual point, and that's what you need to know. Okay, then you can make your own decisions, but you need to actually garner facts, not just follow the guy who's slapping the media. Because, yeah, it's fun to slap the media. Yeah, it's fun to slap the left. That's great. But this is a point I've been making for a long time, okay, about provoking the left, being a provocateur, about slapping the left. If you're going to do these things, the point here is to tell the truth, and if the left takes offense, that's their problem. The point here is not just to offend the left. If your definition of conservatism is it makes the left angry, lots of things make the left angry, including some things that ought to make the left angry.
Okay, and it is not your job just to make the left angry or to celebrate when the left gets angry. You have to determine, are they angry for a good reason or a bad reason? You have to determine, are they angry because you spoke facts or are they angry because you lied? Because pretending that everybody on the left is just an inhuman monster and that none of them have any capacity for reason at all and that they're all just making things up 100% of the time, that's not a recipe for politics. It's not a recipe for having a rational conversation. So all I'm advocating here is that we all take a step back here and that we look in the mirror and that we say to ourselves, okay, what's true and what's false? We look in the mirror and we say, okay, are we excited because Trump is opposing the left or are we excited because the left opposes Trump? And there is a difference. There is a difference, okay? Are we excited because Trump is opposing the left, or are we excited because the left opposes Trump? Because people use this as shorthand. Okay, the left opposes Trump. That must mean he's doing something right. Not always. Not always. A lot of the time, that's true. A lot of the time, that is true. But sometimes it's not. And that's true for everyone in the right-wing movement. Okay, just because the left opposes you in the right, that doesn't necessarily mean that the left is wrong. Okay, the left is sometimes correct about things they oppose. They're not wrong 100% of the time about everything. They're wrong on principles, but they're not necessarily wrong when it comes to, we oppose this person because he did X. And so it's important for you as a conservative to say, do I support this person because of what they stand for, because they stand for standing against the left, or do I support this person because they're eliciting a response from the left? The easiest thing in the world is to elicit a response from snowflakes. The question is, how are you doing it? And is it a good thing? Are you speaking truth? And that's what's ticking off the left. Or is the left just ticked off at you? And now your entire side goes, oh, well, if the left's ticked off at you, then you must be doing something right. You get in real dangerous territory when you start saying just because somebody ticks off the left, that means they're a good person or an ally. That's a mistake. It's a big mistake. Okay, so just to finish up on this Trump press conference, he said a couple of things that were I think, silly about the media. There was one point where he said about the media that it was the fake reporting that was making it difficult for him to make a deal with Russia. Okay, he's the president of the United States. If he wanted to make a deal with Russia, he'd make a deal with Russia, and most of the American people would probably be happy if he took nuclear war off the table. I have to put this in good Trump just because it is so typically Trumpian, and I love this quote so much. He was talking about the chances of a nuclear war with Russia, and it was wonderful. You can't help but admire this language. 11G.
I can tell you one thing about a briefing that we're allowed to say because anybody that ever read the most basic book can say it. Nuclear holocaust would be like no other.
Fact check, true. Nuclear holocaust would be like no other. Fact check, true. Okay, so we're gonna have to break there. If you want to watch the rest, we have a lot more coming up that we're going to be discussing. Stuff I like, stuff I hate. You go to dailywire.com and check it out over there. $8 a month will buy you a subscription to dailywire.com, or you can get an annual subscription at dailywire.com. Right now, if you do that, then you get a free copy of the Arroyo DVD, which is a fictional movie about what's happening on our southern border. Really excellent sort of action western flick, modern action western flick about what's happening on the southern border. Go to dailywire.com and check it out. We are the largest conservative podcast in the nation.